The Norfolk and Western in 1957 was one of the last bastions of mainline steam power in America. Since the railroad had a modern fleet of high-powered and efficient locomotives built in its own shops and ample reserves of coal along its lines, it was one of the last railroads in the country to experiment with diesel locomotives. Here, a streamlined Class J locomotive is pulling the eastbound Pocahontas from Cincinnati to Norfolk, Virginia. Here is the Powhatan Arrow westbound to Cincinnati. On this section of the Norfolk and Western, all freight trains had been dieselized by this time. Only passenger service remained steam-powered. We are now at Portsmouth, Ohio, a major division point on the Norfolk and Western, where the Columbus and Cincinnati lines join. Here is Class J locomotive number 605 pulling the local mail train. Number 605 now returns to the roundhouse for servicing. Only one of these Class J locomotives survives today, number 611. It is stored in serviceable condition at the Norfolk Southern shops in Irondale, Alabama. Norfolk and Western Class A locomotive 1222, a 2664, chuffs by, pulling a coal drag bound for Columbus, Ohio. In Columbus, the train will be turned over to the Pennsylvania Railroad, which will haul it north to Sandusky, a port on Lake Erie. It became common practice on the N&W near the end of the steam era to use extra water tenders to eliminate as many water stops as possible. Notice the water sloshing out of the auxiliary tender. This is number 210. Class S1A 080 switcher built by the N&W shops in 1951. The Norfolk and Western built its last steam locomotive in its Roanoke, Virginia shops in 1954. Here is another Class A locomotive with a long freight train in tow, headed eastbound through Portsmouth. The Class A locomotives used for both freight and passenger service were designed and built by the railroad's own shops at Roanoke, Virginia. We are at the Portsmouth station as yet another Class A locomotive heads up a coal drag bound for Columbus. Only one Class A locomotive survives today, number 1218. It is stored in serviceable condition at the Norfolk Southern shops in Irondale, Alabama. This is Class K1 locomotive number 100, a 482 Mountain, with a local freight on the main line to Columbus. She too was built by the N&W in its Roanoke shops. We are at Chillicothe, Ohio, as Class A number 1212 thunders by with a coal drag, northbound for Columbus. Streamlined Class K2A locomotive number 133 is on a local freight run. This locomotive was originally built in 1923 by Baldwin and streamlined in 1946. Number 133 gathers speed as it heads south for Portsmouth. We now leave the Chillicothe area and head up the line. Class A number 1202 is headed for Columbus with a freight drag in tow. This locomotive was built in the N&W shops in 1937. This Class A locomotive is pulling a coal drag bound for Columbus. We are now at Columbus, Ohio, where the Norfolk and Western interchanges with the Pennsylvania Railroad. Norfolk and Western number 196, a 280, heads out for its daily switching duties. We see locomotive number 196 again, this time in an industrial area of Columbus. Bluefield, West Virginia in 1959 is the last remaining bastion of steam on the N&W. This is the locomotive servicing facility at Bluefield. A Class Y5 locomotive, a 2882, is being serviced. These locomotives were originally built by the N&W in the 1930s. This is the lubritorium, where the locomotives pass through for lubrication before heading out on their next run. Locomotive number 2109 heads for the ready track. This locomotive was built by the N&W's Roanoke shops in 1931. A Bluefield coaling tower is in the background as a Class Y5 locomotive number 2105 moves a string of cars. The Class Y locomotives were of the compound type, where the steam exhausted from the rear set of cylinders is reused in the larger front cylinders. The N&W was the last railroad in the United States to use compound steam locomotives. Here, a Class S1A 080 switcher number 229 performs its switching duties around the Bluefield yards. This switcher was built in the N&W's Roanoke shops in 1953. This is a Class Y5 locomotive pushing an 080 switcher and a Class K482 locomotive to their final resting places where they will be scrapped. The connecting rods on the drivers have been removed in preparation.